Have you ever wondered why the Klingons in the original Star Trek series, the 1960s show, look almost human? In those episodes, they have dark hair, bushy eyebrows, and menacing mustaches, but noticeably, no forehead ridges. They basically look like swarthy humans with a bad attitude. The answer isn't some deep sci-fi mystery, it's actually about movie magic and money. In the 1960s, Star Trek had a limited makeup and effects budget, so the Klingon characters had very minimal prosthetics. In fact, the Klingons you see in episodes like Errand of Mercy, the first time we get a Klingon appearance, are essentially humans with some theatrical makeup. A bit of brow shading, glued on facial hair, and a darker foundation on their skin. Stick around as we explore how limited time, materials and funds led to the simplistic early Klingon look, and how later Star Trek productions with bigger budgets transformed Klingons with the iconic ridged heads we know today. The original series Klingons are famous as fierce warriors in the story, but their appearance was quite underwhelming by later standards. In the first season episode Errand of Mercy in 1967, Captain Kirk's nemesis, Kor, and his Klingon soldiers look more like humans with heavy tans and handlebar mustaches than alien beings. This wasn't a creative choice to imply that Klingons were human-like. It was born out of necessity. The production team simply lacked the budget, time and materials for elaborate alien makeup in those days. Creating things like bony forehead ridges or exotic prosthetic features for a whole new species was above what the show could afford in the 1960s, so the Klingons were designed to be achieved cheaply and quickly. And what did that entail? Essentially, the makeup artist Fred Phillips had to improvise with what he had on hand. When actor John Colicos was cast as Kor, the first Klingon we meet, Phillips asked him how he thought the Klingon should look, since the script gave almost no detail. Colicos and Phillips together came up with a concept they envisaged as the Klingons, a sort of military, ruthless people, perhaps analogous to historical warlords. Colicos suggested giving Kor a Genghis Khan-inspired look. In other words, a vaguely Mongolian or Eurasian appearance to hint at a warrior culture. To achieve this, they did the following. Sprayed the actor's hair jet black and styled it slightly rough, applying a greenish-brown tinted makeup base to his face to darken his skin tone, and added exaggerated facial hair. Colicos famously asked for a Fu Manchu-style moustache and thick arched eyebrows to give his face a harsher look. The resulting look gave him a sinister, aggressive vibe without needing any latex appliances or special prosthetics. In his own words, Colicos said, "Spray my hair black, give me a kind of swampy green olive mud makeup, and we'll borrow some stuff from Fu Manchu. Put a long mustache and heavy eyebrows on me." The makeup designer agreed, and within a couple of hours, the first Klingon visage emerged. It was basically just makeup and hair, but it worked for the cameras. Now, why go with such a simple approach? Because it was cheap and efficient. Phillips and Colicos managed to devise a Klingon look that could be applied in about 20 minutes per actor. Now, this was crucial for production. It meant if an episode needed a whole squad of Klingon characters, the makeup department could get multiple actors ready without endless hours in the chair. Indeed, after Errand of Mercy, Klingons became recurring antagonists on Star Trek, partly because they were relatively easy to portray. Essentially facial hair and slightly darkened skin, that was all that was required. One behind-the-scenes account confirms that the Klingons were accepted as looking human-like mainly because the show had neither the materials, the budget, nor the time to create a more alien look. So the Klingons' appearance was a direct result of 1960s TV budget constraints. They could not afford pointed ears beyond the Vulcans or expensive full-face prosthetics on numerous actors, notably even the Romulans in TOS who had pointed ears like Spock were costly to do frequently, which is partly why Klingons replaced Romulans as the go-to villains. Romulan makeup and prosthetics took more resources, whereas Klingons were simpler. Interestingly, Gene Roddenberry, who, as we know, is the series creator, had envisioned the Klingons as analogous to Cold War adversaries, essentially a stand-in for the Soviets or other militant regimes of the era. The name Klingon even comes from a real officer's name that Roddenberry borrowed, with a slight twist. So giving them an Eastern or Eurasian look made a kind of symbolic sense. To American audiences in the 1960s, it signalled foreign, possibly adversarial culture. However, the real reason for the simplistic look was not thematic but practical. There wasn't the money all the time to do anything more elaborate. If Klingons had required extensive prosthetic work like later aliens, we might have seen a lot less of them in TOS. It's a bit ironic and charming in hindsight. What started as a budget-driven compromise became an integral part of Star Trek lore. Fans spent years speculating in universe why the Klingons changed their appearance. Even Gene Roddenberry joked about it. He quipped that the Klingons always had ridged heads, we just didn't have the budget to show it back then. In other words, he treated the TOS look as a figment of our limitations, not the Star Trek universes. Later writers had fun coming up with explanations in the story, radiation, genetic experiments, that kind of thing, but Roddenberry's tongue-in-cheek answer was essentially the truth. The cameras in the 1960s just didn't capture those ridges because they weren't there. So the next time you watch an old Star Trek episode and see Klingons that look like swarthy human villains with silly mustaches, you'll know exactly why. It wasn't a mistake or a weird plot. It was 1960s TV economics at work. With time and success, Star Trek was able to upgrade the Klingons' look into the fearsome aliens we recognise now. In a way, those painted-faced Klingons are a testament to the show's resourcefulness. They made it work with imagination and grease paint. And the characters of Kor, Kang, Koloth, the classic Klingon captains, were still compelling and sinister, proving you don't always need elaborate makeup if you have good actors and writing. Fans today have affection for those retro Klingons. They're part of Trek history, and without them, we wouldn't have the rich Klingon culture explored in later series. It's even become a fun trivia point. Did you know that the original Klingons had no ridges because the show couldn't afford it? Well, now you do. If this peek behind the scenes of Trek makeup surprised or enlightened you, give this video a like and tell us your favourite TOS Klingon moment in the comments. Do you prefer the classic smooth-headed Klingons for their campy charm, or the modern ridged ones for their fearsome look? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And make sure you subscribe to Hailing Frequencies for more fascinating Trek trivia every week. Starting next week, 10th of September, I'll be launching a new series all about the evolution of the Starfleet uniform, with behind-the-scenes details as well as in-universe thoughts. You don't want to miss it. Thanks for joining our mission today. Keep your phasers set to Curious, and we will see you next time. I'm Stu Jackson, and this has been your weekly wave of Trek Trivia.